Yeah, no, I was trying to get away from the generations, and I found these different traditions running through, and I could talk about fiction. I didn't talk about poetry or drama, because I know fiction much better than I know the others. So I was using that as an experiment. But I see myself as an emotional realist, although I like to tell stories. They're character-driven. They have a lot of reality in them. I slip into comedy a lot. I like to be funny. It's there's comic realists, people like Stephen Macaulay and John Weir, who are actually also very serious. But there's one, or do I call them the fabulous,
yes,
or these fantastic people like Alan Gurganus. And I wish I could write like that. They just kind of it's like magic realism in a way, and it's a wonderful. I think I've experimented that a little bit with Notorious Dr. August, but I'm still have at least one foot on the ground at all times. So.
Okay. Another piece that's similar to this, it's an overview of AIDS literature, and you talk about the novel Angel Clare and how you thought this would be a purging experience about your emotions and your feelings around AIDS, and you realized that it didn't have a purging effect at all. And I just wondered, in general, as a writer, that sort of purging effect, what you want to get out of your system. And in the book, one of the more talked about pieces, I think, is the essay on faggots that you wrote. And I wondered, to what degree does something like that, for example, become a purging, like things you want to say, and you really can't say it in fiction, but you can say it in essays. And I just really, I mean, not that forthrightly, because it's a very smart, very candid piece, and it's actually is a piece that makes you want to go back and reread Faggots. I mean, it's not at all a hit piece, but it's a very critical piece. And I just wondered, just as a writer, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, that's sort of the role of writing as purging.
Well, one of the things in my essay on Faggots I argue is that, I mean, it's this sex-driven, sex-obsessed, sexy book denouncing sex. And that clearly Larry Kramer had his own issues he was trying to work out. I mean, now the book is seen, and Kramer himself talks about it as if it were a brutal criticism of gay promiscuity. But there's more stuff going. It's a man arguing with himself. That's what keeps the book alive. And I think we all do that. I think it's... I wrote a novel called In Memory of Angel Clare, and it was a novel about AIDS. And I wrote it at a time when I actually had even less experience than I had later. I don't know if I would have written it later. It was like a preemptive strike against reality. I had all these fears, and I wanted to explore them and see. You won't worry. How well will you behave if somebody close to you gets sick? It was a real worry during the epidemic, and I wanted to explore that. But I think all the best fiction is you're arguing with yourself, you're exploring it. I don't know if you might hope you purge, but I don't think you do. I think it's just you kind of keep it under control for a while. There's a great quote by Amos Oz, the Israeli novelist. He said that when he understands something, he'll write an essay about it. When he doesn't understand, he'll write a novel. And I think that's true for me, too. So.
Do you ever think about the backlash when you write about a subject like Larry Kramer or Andrew Sullivan also, when you tackle these topics, knowing that they're going to read this and, maybe there'll be a backlash against your fiction in terms of review? Does that ever enter your mind? Or
strangely enough, no, but I'm kind of in my own dream world when I write. So it's like when I incorporate a friend or a piece of a friend for a fictional character. When I write it, I'm completely innocent. Oh, doom-de-doom-de. And then it's afterwards like, oh my God, what's so-and-so going to think of this? And a little bit of that with maybe Larry Kramer or and other people. You just kind of like suddenly catches up. It's not just me. People will read this, or they will read it. So.
Right. I think one of the other really fun pieces in here, and I've never seen anything like this either, because so often gay literature gets taken as this genre thing over in the corner, and Chris actually turns it on its head in an essay called Constraint Men Still Write. And he basically goes through, Don DeLillo, Philip Roth, Updike, and all of them, and just dissects the whole thing and talks about how so many of them write the same novel over and over, and how they're obsessed with a lot of the same issues. And you say something, you have a dissatisfaction with straight male fiction. I just wondered if you want to just talk a minute about that, because you really, I mean, you went out and you sort of got a selection of books that were out, that were being reviewed, and you went through them, you compared them, and it's such a smart piece.
Oh, well, thanks. Well, I mean, it's not, here I contradict what I just said earlier. I mean, I wrote that piece because I didn't understand. So why is it everybody, at that point, everybody I liked was either gay or female, right. Or a couple of foreigners. And the big brand names of straight male fiction were just leaving me cold. And I thought, well, why is that? And I kind of started making notes. Then I did a little more reading, trying to put my finger on what was missing, and it meant reading. I read a lot of books I didn't like, which was it's a strange experience. But I didn't want to read them because I knew I would hate them. I mean, along the way I discovered some that were quite wonderful. Sweet Hereafter by Russell Banks. Later on, started reading Charles Baxter. And there's great straight writers out there. And I was trying to understand, why do I like them and I don't like Don DeLillo? I have to say, I find unreadable. I really don't get. It's great prose and nothing happens. Philip Roth is readable, and there's a kind of real drama and churning going on that I find involving, but it just tells the same story over and over again. And I can read only like one every 10 years. And I mean, once I start reading, I will read to the end, even no matter how frustrated I feel. Who are some of the others in there?
Richard Ford is in there.
Yeah, Richard Ford I don't get at all. I don't understand. It's boring. It is really boring. Mm-hmm. Whereas, I mean, right now I can think of more people I've read since then. A great, terrific novelist named Sigrid Nunez, who did an amazing novel called The Last of Her Kind. And she does successfully what Roth was trying to do in American Pastoral. And it's two college roommates at Barnard. One becomes a political radical, and it's narrated by the other one. And it just follows their careers through like 30 years of American history. It's an amazing novel with a real kind of power to it, and really emotionally involving and upsetting. And it should be read by everyone. I mean, but it's and like I say, it does successfully what people were claiming American Pastoral did.
One of the pieces in here is a speech you gave to the Publishing Triangle when you were given the Bill Whitehead Lifetime Achievement Award, and you said that you hear a lot about the death of gay fiction. It's over. No one's reading. No one's buying. Whatever. And you make the point, and it's kind of an interesting one, where you say the problem isn't with the writers or the readers, it's with the tastemakers and the media around it. And I wonder if you'd just comment on that.
Well, I think it's gotten even worse. That was 4 years ago, and New York Times Book Review, I think, is just is snoozeville. It's whenever you think it cannot get any worse, it gets worse. And it's rare to read it and find something, come away wanting to read something else. And if you've read the book and you get there, I don't know what's going on. I think part of the problem right now with the New York Times Book Review, I think the main editors don't read fiction anymore. And so they're just kind of guessing at what's worth reading and what's out there.
Is the problem also the publishers themselves?
I'm sure. Yeah, it can't help. I mean, today's Times. There's the article about the publishing industry is all upset that these books they paid millions of dollars for aren't continuing to sell well. Yeah. I mean, why did they pay so much for them in the first place? That was just nuts. So I mean, they want to kind of. If they put all their money on one square of the roulette wheel, that will, and everybody will then read that book because they can guarantee it, but it doesn't work that way. Readers are really fickle. We just read all over the place. There's no we have really strange tastes. And I think publishers need to keep that in mind and just put their chips on as many squares as possible.
Yeah. Well, someone was making that point today in Publishers Weekly.